Welcome back to the Appraisal Doctor. I am Dr. Aria A. Wilson, PhD in Urban Planning, Certified Residential Appraiser. Now this week on the Appraisal Doctor, we are outside. Yes, you can hear the birds in the background, but I think you should be able to hear me. If you are here for the first time, please feel welcome to ask any questions of the Appraisal Doctor. Anything real estate, urban planning, and property appraisal. Now, if you are here and you are interested in this type of information, stick around and let's see what question we approach today. In this week on the Appraisal Doctor, our question is, why is it important for the property appraiser to have ethics? Why is ethics so important? We are going to approach this from 5 focus points because it is not practical for us to really look at all the details that surround ethics and the profession of real estate and or the property appraiser's practice. There is a code of ethics that is outlined under USPAP. I know for the state of Texas and the jurisdiction for which I am certified that there are code of ethics that must be followed. There are actual practical things that must be done in every appraisal report to be considered compliant. If you are not compliant, then there is a problem with ethics. So the first thing that I would want to look at is being conscientious to follow the actual rules. Do the appraisal accurately. Do what you are supposed to do. Get the comps in the right way. Adjust the comps in an appropriate way. It is expected that the appraiser has a certain level of ethics so that they can be trusted to follow the law. When the bank asks an appraiser to do an appraisal report, they are expecting accuracy. They are expecting that the appraiser knows and is qualified to do what he's doing. So the first thing that the appraiser needs to keep in mind in order to be ethical is to be correct, is to be accurate, is to know his job and actually do it. If you know that you do not know how to do a particular appraisal, you should not accept that engagement. Let me repeat myself. If you know that you were asked to do an appraisal in Dallas, you have absolutely no idea about the Dallas market. You have no contacts professionally to co-partner with you within this appraisal, to co-appraise this particular engagement. You reserve the right to say no to such an engagement on the basis that you are not qualified to perform an accurate report. You are not qualified to bring forth a reasonable appraisal opinion of value because you are not familiar with the jurisdiction, you are not familiar with the market, and it is okay to say no because you would be ethical on the basis of you are not able to be accurate at the end of the appraisal process. So that is number 1. Being conscientious and being honest with yourself that you are unable to produce an accurate opinion of value. Number 2, conflict of interest. If you know that this appraisal has something to do with a project, for example, if there's a development that is taking place and you are one of the developers, but you also happen to hold a property appraisal license, you are in conflict. Your interest in this particular case is two-sided. You are now having an interest in coming up with an opinion of value, but you are conflicted because the opinion of value can dictate what happens in the development project. Why? Because you are a part of the development team. So in this case, it is ethical for you to step away and say no, refuse that engagement, because there is a conflict of interest and your interest in that exercise is no longer objective to come up with an opinion of value that is accurate. So that would be the second one that I consider very important in practicing appraisal, where you need to show ethical principles and the importance of ethics arises. The next one is self-promotion. It somewhat is relative to the conflict of interest point, but self-promotion in an example where you are charging according to the difficulty of the appraisal, how much effort the appraisal is going to take, what are the critical skill sets that are needed in this particular engagement, you are going to charge accordingly. Now, one way that you could be unethical is if you are in a situation where the value of the property is such that you are going to charge according to the value, because you do have scenarios such as that. If you are charging according to the value of the property, you're self-promoting if you ensure that that value is on the higher end, so that your fees can also reflect on the higher end. And this particular example relates more to a real estate agent who might be selling a property on behalf of a client. And yes, the client wants the most for the property, but they might be self-promoting where they know that this value is unrealistic, but they are trying to push that price in the market because they know once it's sold at a higher price, the realtor's commission is also at a higher price. So that is an example of how ethics is not being practiced, and self-promotion is the cause of bad ethical behavior in the real estate profession. So there I use that example more towards the real estate agent because it's more relevant there. In some jurisdictions, property appraisers do charge their fees according to the value of the property. But in most cases, in my jurisdiction right now and in my practice every day, it is based on the difficulty of the process to come by an opinion of value. So if there is a complicated situation surrounding the appraisal analysis and multiple analyses must be performed, then the appraiser reserves the right to charge per analysis. So there is nothing unethical in that scenario. But if it's a scenario where I know in Jamaica, we charge our fees based on the value of the property, then it can be self-promotion if the value is purposely put at the higher band because there is interest to the appraiser of charging a higher fee. That's an example of self-promotion, and self-promotion can be considered unethical. Another one is discrimination, where you go into a neighborhood that's particularly of a lower income value band, and you see that there is work done on a property, and the property has a pool, for example, but it's in a lower middle income area. It is fair for there to be a value added to the overall market value within that market, because there is an additive, there is an advantage to that property in having a pool. Now, are people going to come into that market and necessarily want to pay a high premium for a pool added in the backyard? Or are they going to be like, I don't care for a pool, so I'm not going to pay that much more? That may be the case. But whatever the case is, it is incumbent on the appraiser to do his research to find out, is this value added the fact that work was done and money was spent, there should be some value added, even if it does not equate to what it costed the property owner to add a particular element to the property. There should still be some value added. And investigation should be made by the appraiser. Research should be done by the appraiser to come up with what that value added is. There have been cases where appraisers have been accused of being discriminatory because they have put a lower value on a property than it really should be. And it has been the case that those properties, unfortunately, are in lower income neighborhoods or neighborhoods with marginalized people or immigrants. And it has been the case where it has been proven that appraisers show unethical behavior in their final opinion of value because of who the property owner is or because of where the property is located. So discrimination is also a way of showing unethical behavior in the property appraisal practice. And lastly, a general summative way in which unethical behavior can be shown is just basic, fundamental dishonesty. Dishonesty can be shown in many ways in an appraisal process. It can be shown in the inspection. The property appraiser can say that they have inspected the property and they have not. They can be dishonest about checking a box saying that they have inspected the property internally and externally when there was only a drive-by external inspection done and pictures were taken. Dishonesty can also be in that the property appraiser tells lies about the condition of the property, saying that the property is in better condition than it is or in worse condition than it is in order to skew the value in whichever way suits them. So that level of dishonesty, it's unethical. It connects with being self-promoting and it also connects with conflict of interest. All of these are examples of ways in which the property appraiser or the real estate professional is deemed as unethical. There are rules that govern the practice of property appraisal and how it's executed. There are disciplinary actions for appraisers that have been brought up to the board for being dishonest, for being unethical. That is very disgraceful in this profession because in this profession, it's considered a professional practice. So it is assumed that ethics is along the line. Ethics is in our training. Ethics is emphasized at every aspect. And disciplinary actions are taken whenever any of us as appraisers are brought up for unethical behavior. Why is ethics so important to the property appraisal profession? I hope I answered this question adequately. Next week, join us again while we tackle another appraisal question. Thank you for joining. Please consider subscribing to the Appraisal Doctor. See you next week.